Sensation! This is the end for Putin. Poland reaches for the nuclear button. Narotsky ready to deploy weapons of mass destruction. Paris and Warsaw are gonna destroy Moscow. Poland is bypassing NATO. Drones and warplanes over Belarus and Ukraine. Will Polish fighters start shooting them down? Shock! Drones hover over Europe. Attack on a military site in Norway. Airport in Denmark paralyzed. Police on high alert. First details right now. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Maria Farafonova, and here are the latest news. Poland is planning to allow its military to shoot down targets over Belarus and Ukraine without seeking approval from NATO or the EU. This was first reported in the media, citing experts.
Today we are discussing the strategy of using our air forces and air defence systems over Ukraine and Belarus to shoot down Russian planes and drones that have not yet crossed the Polish border.
It is already known that the bill will be reviewed as quickly as possible. It cancels the amendment adopted on the eve of Russia's invasion, which prohibited the use of the Polish army without the approval of NATO, the EU or the country in which it was operating.
The current ruling coalition plans to abolish these restrictions under the principle of shoot first, ask later, giving the military greater flexibility in responding to threats.
Even more shocking, Poles are being told to get out of Belarus immediately.
Due to rising tensions, the ongoing war in the region, and repeated arbitrary arrests of Polish citizens, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs strongly advises against any travel to the Republic of Belarus. In the event of a sudden deterioration in the security situation, border closures, or other unforeseen circumstances, evacuation may become significantly more difficult or even impossible.
Shock! Poland dares to reach for the nuclear button. A real showdown is beginning. The power of weapons is now measured differently. Russia has trapped itself while new mega weapons are rewriting the rules of the game. It's time for Putin to pack his bags. NATO acknowledges Ukraine's strengths, and on Europe's military chessboard the priorities are shifting. Don't miss all the details coming up next.
The new nuclear axis of Europe, Poland is ready to become a country with its own nuclear shield.
As the President of the Republic of Poland, I believe that Poland should participate in nuclear sharing. It should have its own nuclear energy, civilian and military capabilities.
According to Narotsky, Poland is counting on France's support in this matter. For Warsaw, this is not just an alliance, but a way to obtain the very weapon that will change the rules of the game in Europe and challenge both Moscow and Brussels.
This statement by the Polish president came shortly after an unprecedented attack by Russian drones on Poland. And although this time dozens of drones were reconnaissance drones that did not pose a direct military threat, many in Warsaw continue to fear that the attack will be repeated and next time they could be strike drones.
To solidify nuclear cooperation, Poland is preparing to sign the Nancy Treaty, a document intended to deepen collaboration in the fields of defense and security. And although Narotsky admits that it is still too early to talk about this, his position is clear. Poland intends to participate in nuclear sharing.
The significant fact that Poland is now beginning to seriously consider its own active participation in potentially receiving nuclear weapons from its Western allies clearly demonstrates the elevated level of profound concern that currently exists within many Central European countries. This concern is primarily due to the ongoing and protracted Russia-Ukraine war, and furthermore, the Western leaders' apparent lack of a comprehensive understanding of precisely how they can effectively stop this devastating war in the foreseeable future, and, at the same time, robustly counter Russia's aggressive geopolitical ambitions, which are, quite alarmingly, actively and consistently supported by Beijing. And there is a growing and profound understanding that if Vladimir Putin's unwavering determination to continue this protracted war against Ukraine indefinitely is not decisively stopped by concerted Western efforts, and with very little hope currently placed on the potential actions of Donald Trump, then this devastating conflict will inevitably keep taking on new and increasingly dangerous forms and eventually will undoubtedly cross Ukraine's sovereign borders.
Frightened by the recent aerial incursion, Poland has quickly begun adopting Ukraine's experience in countering Russian drones. Poland's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz arrived in Kyiv along with a delegation from the Ministry of Defense and the country's armed forces. On the agenda are military technical cooperation, further support for Ukraine's defense, and the overall security situation in the context of Russian aggression.
Now we see that one way or another, this is direct evidence not just that Ukraine needs to adopt Western military experience, but rather the reverse. That NATO countries should adopt a significant part of Ukraine's experience in waging war, modern war, real war, which no longer fully aligns with the textbooks taught at the best NATO military academies, with all due respect to their experience. And this creates for us, this is actually an additional marker of mutual dependence.
Warsaw and Kiev have also agreed to cooperate in countering drones, sharing information about aerial threats, and implementing technologies for the rapid deployment of reconnaissance and strike drones.
A possible analysis by Russia, a kind of reconnaissance, how will Europe act in the event of the outbreak of an armed conflict? So, for example, if Russia were to truly, seriously violate airspace, what NATO response forces could be mobilized, what do they look like, from where, and how many of which aircraft would take off? In other words, simply to understand the framework of the response. If Russia is indeed conducting such an analysis at a serious level, then, well, that's a sign that we really need to prepare for a serious armed clash between Western and Russian armed forces. Regardless, even regardless of what happens with Ukraine, whether the war in Ukraine ends or not.
At the same time, Poland is launching an unprecedented rearmament program. Its expenditures are enormous. In particular, this includes combat aircraft and helicopters, a wide range of armored vehicles, tube and rocket artillery systems, modern air defense systems and munitions. At the same time, Warsaw is actively ramping up its own weapons production. In addition, the country has planned a record defense budget for next year, 200 billion zlotys, or about $55 billion, which amounts to approximately 4.8% of GDP. Furthermore, efforts are underway to significantly increase the size of the armed forces from 200,000 to 500,000 personnel. The Polish authorities consistently emphasize that the country is utilizing all available resources to guarantee its own security.
Putin pushing into Scandinavia too? Drones spotted in Denmark and Norway, airports shut down and even arrests made. Putin's drones and planes now over Europe. Russia has enraged half the world. More details coming up.
Unknown drones attacked Denmark and Norway on the evening of Monday, September 22nd. As a result, an alert was declared. At Denmark's largest airport in Copenhagen, all arrivals and departures were halted after drones were spotted in the airspace. More than 35 flights were redirected to other airports.
We are observing an increasing number of instances involving acts of airspace intrusion, which are occurring with greater frequency within the strategically important region of the North Atlantic Alliance. And this significant situation is happening both in numerous countries that are geographically quite close to the Russian Federation, and now it also increasingly concerns various countries that are located much farther away from Russia.
None of the 4 drones that flew over the airport were shot down. The Copenhagen police stated that the UAVs disappeared. Denmark and Norway will conduct a joint investigation into both cases of mysterious incursions.
The drone incursion we've witnessed these past days was not the first one. There have already been documented violations of Polish airspace by both incoming missiles and Iranian-made Shaheds. It's just that there hasn't been such a truly massive attack, essentially, on this scale. In my opinion, this was an attack, a serious act of aggression. It was, well, aimed at probing the effectiveness and resolve. But I think Russia can do the same thing in other countries as well.
In the Norwegian capital of Oslo, an alert was also declared over the military zone of Akershus fortress due to drones. The drones were detected by the military. In connection with the incident, 2 people from Singapore were detained.
It would be very important here, of course, for the United States of America to act more decisively. But unfortunately, so far, aside from some statements, we have not seen how ready the US is to, let's say, deal with the challenges that currently exist.
Drones on European territory are now more of a common occurrence than news. Until now, all unidentified drones have turned out to be of Russian origin. And it is quite possible that due to its impunity, Russia continues to test NATO's patience. Lithuanian Defense Minister Dovydė Šakalienė expressed the opinion that the countries of the North Atlantic Alliance could have responded more decisively and shot down the aggressor's UAV over Estonia. She also recalled the example of Turkey, whose airspace was also violated by Russia 10 years ago.
It seems to me quite clearly that what we fundamentally have here is a significant lack of genuine political will. For now, at this particular stage, perhaps Estonia is genuinely afraid that Russia might somehow retaliate, but it will undoubtedly respond in a completely different and indeed a more asymmetric way, which could be quite impactful. Most likely, it could step up its subversive activities in Estonia. And considering the significant fact that Estonia, a sovereign nation, borders the vast Russian Federation, and that there are a substantial number of ethnic Russians currently living within Estonia's borders, this particular situation could potentially become a significantly destabilizing factor for the entire region.
Aircraft that violate the airspace of NATO countries should be shot down. This was stated by the President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel. According to him, only such an adequate response will make Russia realize that it has crossed the line and made a mistake.
Russia has pushed so far that even Scandinavia can't take it anymore and is arming to the teeth. Denmark is buying missiles and drones for deep strikes, a historic record in military spending. Missiles and drones on standby. Is Copenhagen ready to strike? All the details, watch now.
Denmark will purchase long-range missiles and drones due to the threat from Russia. This was announced by the country's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. Danish Defense Minister Troels Lund Poulsen noted that with these new assets, the armed forces will be able to actively counter threats far from the country. According to Poulsen, the experience of the war in Ukraine has shown that it is important not only to build a layered air defense system, but also to have the means to strike at targets on enemy territory, including missile launchers.
Denmark, on its own, is unlikely to be able to defend itself against Russia, which is why Denmark is one of the key members of the North Atlantic Alliance, the so-called NATO bloc. Over the past 30 years, the European members of NATO have seriously disarmed. In Europe, the prevailing principle was the confidence and protection from the United States, with Trump coming to the White House, turned out to be not quite as solid as expected.
According to the Commander-in-Chief of the Danish Army, General Michael Weigers Gilgaard, long-range precision weapons will allow the military to counter threats before they reach their territory.
The Danes are also interested in acquiring and deploying such weapons. Missile systems with the range of over 600 kilometers. Over 600 kilometers, meaning they exceed the range of short tactical range.
Russia's ambassador to Copenhagen, Vladimir Barbin, responded immediately to Denmark's statement. According to him, no one anywhere in the world has ever even thought of publicly threatening a nuclear power. And now Russia must proceed from the fact that Denmark is not only considering the possibility of a direct military confrontation with it, but is also preparing for such a scenario.
Russia is demonstrating, and in fact their goal was to demonstrate, the lack of unity within NATO, the North Atlantic Alliance, to sow discord among the member states of the alliance, to split and destroy the European security system. They are indeed succeeding in this endeavor. They achieve success by employing rather straightforward, at first glance, however, it becomes extremely difficult to conclusively prove Russia's direct and undeniable guilt, quite challenging. It's very difficult if one chooses not to see it. Nevertheless, Europeans are already seeing the aggressive nature of the Russian Federation, and while they have not yet fully and completely accepted the undeniable reality that a potential war with Russia, if not entirely inevitable, is indeed quite possible, and in the very near future at that, a truly concerning prospect.
Prime Minister Frederiksen responded to the statement of the Russian ambassador by saying that it would in no way affect Denmark's decision and that her country would not allow itself to be intimidated by Russia.
What do you think about the latest events? Share your opinion in the comments, like the video and stay informed about the main headlines. More to come?